Welcome back to Ask the Attorney. We're here with Kevin Kennedy from Clarksville, answering lots of questions for us today. And I'm going to move Kevin's mic while we're talking, but we've got Frank here on line 5. Hi, Frank.
Go ahead, Frank.
Yes. My question is, I have a will, and I would like to know the difference between a trust. What are the advantages or disadvantages of having a trust in lieu of the will?
Right, and a lot of companies go out here and they sell these, what is known as a living trust, and they make representations that it's so much better than a will. Now, myself personally, I always like to say, well, what's the best movie? You look at that long line. Somebody's already investigated. They know the ins and outs. And usually where that long line is, that's a really good movie. So I like to ask the lawyers, I say, well, what do you have? Do you have a living trust or do you have a will? And me personally, I have a will. So, of course, I've had lots of lawyers work there. We do estates all the time. And there are certain circumstances I would entertain a living trust. But personally, I have a will. So if I would have it for me, I'd probably recommend it for you outside some unusual circumstances in your family.
Okay. We've got Frank here. Hi, Frank.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Frank. That was you over here. I'm getting some names confused. We've got Anthony.
Yes. I have been living in a home for about 18 years. And the home is in the area where it's being built up, new houses on both ends of the street, etc. And like I said, I've been staying here for 18 years. And all of a sudden, I received a letter from the manager of the property saying that I owe a 6-month rent, or approximately 8 months ago rent. And now he's telling me that on the 17th of this month, I will be evicted.
Wow.
If I don't pay that amount. Now, what am I to do?
Well,
you handle a lot of these landlord-tenant
Yes, landlord-tenant, and so you're going to have to get to a lawyer. First off, what we're always saying is keep your receipts. If you went to my office, there's boxes and boxes and boxes and files and files and files of records. You're going to have to keep up with them. And, if you get into a dispute with your credit card company, you're going to have that receipt. Again, what I would say is, have you been paying your rent? Do you have your receipts? And if you're not keeping your receipts, then somebody's going to try to take advantage of you, and that's what sounds like what's happened here. I would try to hire a lawyer. If I couldn't, I would try to recreate. If I wrote a check, I'd go to the bank and get my checks and say, hey, I don't owe you 6 months back rent because each and every month I have paid this. And so, again, I would try to create those records the best you could. If you couldn't do that, you might also get someone to write an affidavit and say, I know that my father or my brother paid this each and every month. I watched him, and you've got some kind of evidence to counter that.
Right.
Of course, your testimony is evidence itself. If they bring a lawsuit against you to evict you, you certainly have a right to go to court and say, this is not right. Tonight, Amy, somebody can come in here and say, you owe us $18,000, and we're going to sue you if you don't. Well, again, are you going to give everything you have away? Some days you just have to stand up and fight. You say, I don't want to be in a lawsuit. And you say, well, I didn't either, but we've got to fight. You don't want to just turn your kids over to someone.
Yep, that's true. All right, we've got Ronald here. Hi, Ronald. How can we help you today?
Yeah, I got a quick question. I bought a brand new Ford F-350 6.0 and diesel.
Yes.
And anyway, I kept the truck for 3 years, and I had all kind of problems with it not running right and everything. But anyway, I just gave it back to Ford, and come to find out, I found out that it had an experimental engine, and it just was a whole can of worms in behind that vehicle.
Okay.
And they sent the balance over to a collect or attorney or whatever.
Right.
But they didn't say what it was for or anything. They just say, hey, he owes this balance. And I bought plenty of Ford vehicles, and I've paid off the vehicles in full. But, this vehicle, it just it was a flop. And I tried to trade it in before I got rid of it, before I gave it back to them. And I went to a Dodge dealership, and they said that there's no dealership across the country that would take that vehicle. That vehicle is absolutely worthless. And I was like, that's crazy.
So what can Ronald do about this situation?
Well, where you're at now, Ronald, what you should try to have done was to try to see if they would have given you a release when they said, look, I'm not going to pay for this truck. Why don't you take it back? Give me a release. Now, they don't want to give you a release. And so you're into a fight. Several of your options at that point, you could have sued the Ford Motor Credit. You could have sued the dealership because there's certain lemon laws. What I would tell people, if you had these problems, then you've got to get to a lawyer immediately. The wrong answer is just turn it in because you know they're going to come sue you for a deficiency. And there's a few ways to deal with that. You'll have to defend it. Did they foreclose their lien properly? Did they have a perfected lien properly? And did they follow what would be in a normal course, a reasonable, prudent person on the sale of that vehicle? Or did they just come up with some figures and say, you owe us $40,000 on a deficiency? So, and then you still have some avenues. People file Chapter 13s, they file Chapter 7 and wipe out that kind of debt. It's unsecured debt and it's been disputed.
Right. We'll try to take this quick question from Joyce if you've got a quick one. Hi, Joyce.
Yes. I was beat up by a sheriff deputy, and he broke my wrist in 2 places. And at the time, Medicare paid for my bills. My lawyer, he really wasn't any good. But at the time, Medicare paid for my bills, and now they're coming back for the money that they gave me.
And Joyce, I'm just going to stop you just for a second, and Kevin's going to answer your question during the break, but we do have to take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this.